For 3,000 years, the galaxy had slept under the blanket of peace. Empires that once turned stars into battlefields now spoke only through trade and diplomacy. The Great Galactic Pact had bound hundreds of species together. It was a promise written not on paper, but in the memory of blood. The blood spilled in ancient wars that had nearly destroyed them all. Among these many races, one species had risen quietly without conquest or cruelty: humanity. They were the youngest civilization to join the pact, still new compared to the ancient empires that had existed for millions of years. Yet the humans had achieved much in a short time. They built shining cities on moons, green colonies on faraway worlds, and peaceful outposts among the stars. They were known for their creativity, humor, and strange optimism. The other races often found them odd. Humans laughed in danger. They smiled in sorrow. They joked even when facing death. No one quite understood how a species so emotional could survive in such a cold universe. And yet they did more than survive. They thrived. For centuries, humans sent ships filled with aid to famine-struck planets. They built hospitals on alien worlds. They shared medicine, technology, and art. They became the galaxy's mediators, the bridge between races that once hated each other. Slowly, even the most distrustful empires began to admire them. The name human became a symbol of hope. But peace, like glass, is beautiful only until it cracks. In the farthest corner of the galaxy, beyond the borders of the pact, a shadow grew. The Krill Dominion, a proud and ancient warrior race, had never truly accepted the peace. To them, war was honor, and strength was the only law worth obeying. For centuries they waited, training their armies in secret, building weapons in silence. They watched the galaxy grow soft. They watched humans turn from warriors into builders, and in their pride they mistook kindness for weakness. When the day came, it was sudden. Without warning, hundreds of Krill warships emerged from dark space. They struck at the human colony of Arden, a green and peaceful world where families lived under twin suns. Within hours, the surface turned to ash. Cities were erased. Children, farmers, and scientists, all gone. The Krill called it the cleansing. They believed that by crushing humanity first, the rest of the galaxy would fall to its knees. But they did not understand what they had just done. They had awakened something ancient, something that had been asleep for 3,000 years. The news of Arden's destruction reached Earth within minutes. Across every human colony, the same silence spread, the kind of silence that came before storms. In every city, people stopped what they were doing. Screens flickered with images of fire and loss. Faces turned pale, eyes filled with disbelief, grief, and finally, a strange calm. On the moon, Admiral Rhea Donovan, commander of the Sol Defense Fleet, stood before the great observation window. Below her, Earth glowed like a fragile blue jewel. Her reflection stared back, old, tired yet unbroken. For a long moment she said nothing. Then in a voice barely above a whisper she spoke the words that would change everything. 3,000 years of peace, and they think we forgot how to fight. Her officers stood still. Some were young, never having seen war. Others were descendants of soldiers whose stories had become legends. They felt a chill run through their bones. Humanity had not forgotten. They had simply chosen peace. But now peace had been taken from them. The call went out. Across the colonies, ships that had become museums powered up again. Factories that once made food and medicine began forging armor and weapons. The old war songs were remembered, hummed quietly at first, and then sung louder as courage returned. Yet through all of it, something strange happened. Humans laughed. They laughed at the arrogance of the Krill. They laughed at the idea that peace had made them weak. They laughed because laughter was their way to say, "We are still here." Across the galaxy, other species watched in confusion. Why were humans laughing after losing billions? Why were they smiling when their world burned? But those who knew humanity Best, those who had studied their history, trembled, because they remembered what human laughter meant. It was not joy, it was not madness, it was the sound of defiance, the sound of a predator waking up. And as human fleets began to assemble, one phrase echoed through the star, whispered by those who understood the storm that was coming. The Krill broke the peace, and now they have awakened the old humanity. The galaxy, once calm and shining, felt the first rumble of thunder. Humanity had been peaceful for 3 millennia. Now, the storm had returned. The galaxy held its breath. In the months after Arden's destruction, every human world braced itself. The Krill Dominion had not stopped. They continued their march, sending fleets into neighboring systems, destroying cities, burning colonies, and leaving nothing but blackened planets in their wake. They expected humans to crumble, to beg for mercy, to surrender their pride. But humans did not falter. On Earth, in the city of New Sol, children played among ruined streets. But their laughter carried no fear. Scientists worked tirelessly in labs, building new shields and weapons while telling themselves stories of courage. Farmers harvested food to feed the fleet. Engineers repaired ships faster than anyone thought possible. And artists painted murals celebrating heroes who had already died. Humanity was alive, thriving, not in spite of the war, but because of it. Admiral Rhea Donovan stood again on the bridge of the Vanguard, the flagship of the Sol Defense Fleet. Her eyes scanned the vast armada that stretched from Earth orbit to Mars. Thousands of ships, many old and rebuilt, many new and shining, all waiting for her command. Young officers, barely 20 years old, stared at the stars as if they could already see the enemy's fleets. "They want to test us," Rhea said, her voice calm but sharp. "They think we are weak. Let them come. Let them see what humanity truly is." Her words were broadcast across every colony, every ship, and every human outpost. They were not just orders. They were a challenge. They were a declaration. And across the galaxy, where aliens watched in silence, they were a warning. The Krill believed in absolute power. Their soldiers had been trained to obey without question, to strike without hesitation, and to conquer without remorse. They had studied humans, believing that 3,000 years of peace had dulled them. They thought the humans had forgotten war, that the people who once fought against tyrants and monsters now only smiled, laughed, and built gardens in the void. They were wrong. Humans did not need to remember how to fight. It had never left them. It slept, waiting for the moment it was needed, and now that moment had arrived. Across the colonies, fleets activated their weapons, shields hummed with energy, and humans prepared for a war unlike any the galaxy had seen in millennia. But more than preparation, there was spirit. Every soldier, pilot, engineer, medic, and civilian knew that they fought not just for survival, but for honor, for pride, for the promise that life, human life, would not bow to tyranny. Across the Milky Way, they shared a single truth: humanity does not surrender. Humanity does not beg. Humanity laughs. Even in the darkest rooms, amid the whispers of grief for lost loved ones, laughter rose. Children told jokes in shelters. Pilots sang songs as they prepared for battle. Engineers quipped about the Krill's poor aim and outdated strategies. Laughter was not frivolous. It was courage in its purest form, a refusal to let fear rule their hearts. On the edge of the galaxy, the Krill watched this strange behavior and grew frustrated. Their commanders could not understand it. How can a species so small, so fragile, face death with joy? They asked each other. Their generals argued and planned, trying to predict the humans' moves. But humans did not follow patterns. Humans did not act logically. Humans acted with instinct, with heart, with unpredictability. And that unpredictability was terrifying. Meanwhile, in secret, humans forged alliances. They sent aid and protection to neighboring species that had suffered under Krill oppression. Planets once silent now rang with the presence of human fleets, not as conquerors but as liberators. The galaxy began to notice something extraordinary. Humanity was fighting, yes, but they were also giving, helping, and defending. They were not just warriors. They were a force that reminded the universe what courage and compassion looked like. Admiral Rhea Donovan looked at the stars one last time before giving the order. Her hands rested on the console, steady and strong, the weight of 3,000 years of peace, the burden of billions lost, and the hope of a future yet unwritten pressed on her shoulders. But there was no fear. Only resolve. The Krill fleets would arrive soon. They would bring fire and destruction. They would believe themselves invincible, and humanity would be ready. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy would see the humans who had built gardens in the stars laugh in the face of death. Not out of madness, but out of defiance. The laughter would echo across space. It would echo in the hearts of their allies and in the minds of their enemies. And when the first Krill ship met a human fleet, they would discover the truth. Peace had not made humans weak. Peace had made them patient, strong, and ready. The storm was gathering, and at its center stood humanity, calm, confident, and unafraid. The Krill fleets came like shadows. Thousands of ships, black and angular, moving through the void with deadly precision. They expected fear. They expected humans to panic, to scatter like frightened prey. But when they reached the edges of the Sol system, they found silence. Humanity had been waiting. The first human ship to engage the Krill was not the largest or the most powerful. It was a relic from a forgotten era, rebuilt and upgraded with modern technology. Its weapons hummed, its shields glimmered, and inside the crew moved with calm determination. When the Krill fired first, expecting easy kills, the human ship dodged and returned fire with uncanny accuracy. Explosions tore through Krill cruisers, and the enemy commander froze. "This is impossible," he hissed. But it was not impossible. It was humanity. From Earth to Mars, from Luna to the outer colonies, ships activated. They came in waves, some small and fast, some massive and fortified. They were soldiers, engineers, medics, and pilots, all fighting together with one goal: to protect their people, their home, their future. The Krill pressed forward, confident in their numbers and experience. They had never faced an enemy like this. They had fought empires older than the humans themselves, empires that had terrorized stars for millennia. But humans were different. Humans adapted. Humans learned. Humans laughed. Across the battlefields of space, communications rang with unexpected sounds. Human pilots joked over their comms even as they dodged plasma fire. Engineers teased each other as they repaired damage mid-battle. Medics sang softly to keep spirits high. Laughter flowed through the fleets like a living weapon, confusing and terrifying the enemy. Admiral Rhea Donovan watched the battle from the bridge of the Vanguard, her hands gripping the railing. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, followed every movement. She had faced war before, but never like this. She felt the pride of a people united, a species reborn in fire and determination. A young pilot named Kieran Tal led a squadron of fighters into the thick of the Krill armada. They were outnumbered 3-1, but Kieran grinned behind his visor. "They think we're soft," he said. "Let's show them how hard humans can laugh at death." His squadron darted through enemy fire, striking with precision, taking down cruisers larger than their own ships. Every explosion, every victory was followed by laughter, cheers, and even songs. The Krill had never seen anything like it. They had never faced enemies who fought not only with skill, but with joy in their hearts, even in the face of annihilation. On the planets below, humans watched the battle unfold on screens, holding their breath and then cheering as each strike landed. Civilians worked tirelessly, sending resources to the fleets, repairing damaged ships, and preparing emergency shelters. Humanity was not just fighting in space. They were fighting everywhere, every single person contributing to the defense in some way. The Krill realized too late that they had underestimated humanity. They expected fear, panic, and surrender. Instead, they found courage, laughter, and an unbreakable spirit. Their leaders shouted orders that came too late. Their ships fell one by one, and their formations broke under the relentless assault of human ingenuity. Yet humanity did not celebrate with cruelty. Every victory was tempered with compassion. Prisoners were taken carefully, civilians protected, and destroyed colonies were given aid as soon as possible. Humans fought to end the war, not to become tyrants themselves. By the end of the first strike, the Krill fleet was shattered. Hundreds of their ships had been destroyed, thousands of soldiers captured, and through it all humans had laughed, sung, and cheered, not out of joy for death, but out of defiance, hope, and pride. In a broadcast across the galaxy, Admiral Donovan addressed both allies and enemies. You came to break our peace. You came to destroy us. But you forgot one thing: humanity never surrenders. You will learn that kindness is not weakness and laughter is not fear. You will learn what it means to face a species that fights not only with weapons, but with spirit. The message echoed through alien worlds. Some trembled, some whispered in awe. The Krill themselves did not speak, their confidence shattered, their arrogance burned away by human resilience. The first strike was only the beginning. Humanity had shown the galaxy their true power, not the power to conquer, but the power to endure, adapt, and rise stronger than any force of destruction. And in the void of space, where metal ships clashed and stars trembled, human laughter rang louder than any weapon. It was not madness. It was a warning. The galaxy would remember it forever. The war raged across the stars, and yet humanity did not falter. Every human colony, every ship, every soldier felt the weight of loss. Billions of lives had been destroyed by the Krill. Countless homes turned to ash. And still the humans pressed forward. Their grief did not make them weak. It made them unstoppable. On Mars, the red deserts had been transformed into a sprawling military complex. Engineers worked day and night, constructing massive fleets and repairing ships faster than the Krill could destroy them. They moved with precision, but there was also laughter, the kind that came from knowing they were reclaiming their home and protecting the galaxy. In the skies above Luna, young pilots trained relentlessly. Many were children who had grown up in peace, who had never held weapons before the Krill struck. Now they danced through asteroid fields, learning the art of combat while humming songs of old Earth. Their instructors, veterans of long-forgotten wars, smiled behind their helmets. Humanity had forgotten the taste of war, yes, but war had never forgotten humanity. Meanwhile, the Krill continued their assaults. They had believed that humanity's peace would make them predictable, slow, and vulnerable. They were wrong. Humans adapted with frightening speed. They learned the Krill strategies almost before the aliens could finish explaining them. Every ambush was countered, every trap dismantled, and every strike met with a force the Krill had not expected. In one desperate battle over the asteroid belt of Elysium, a human fleet of 60 ships faced a Krill armada of 300. Most species would have surrendered without a fight. Most species would have begged for mercy. But the humans laughed. They coordinated with precision, weaving through the enemy like a single living organism. Missiles exploded in patterns that seemed almost artistic, while human pilots called out jokes and encouragement over the comms. One young fighter even sent a message to the enemy fleet. "You brought fire to our homes. We bring laughter to your graves." The Krill froze, not understanding the meaning. How could a species face annihilation with such joy, such defiance? They had underestimated the most dangerous thing in the galaxy, a human heart. Even on the planets below, humans were everywhere. Civilians carried supplies to the fleets. Children helped engineers repair drones. Teachers instructed young students about navigation, medicine, and defense. Humanity fought as one, not just with ships and weapons, but with intelligence, creativity, and sheer will. Every act of courage became a story, every small victory a spark that lit the fire in the hearts of billions. Admiral Rhea Donovan watched reports from the battles, her eyes never leaving the display. She saw loss, yes, and it pained her, but she also saw resilience. She saw a species that refused to bow, refused to tremble, refused to surrender. Her hands rested lightly on the console, steady and commanding. Humanity was alive, more alive than ever, and it was terrifying. Across the galaxy, whispers spread. Some alien races began to doubt the Krill's dominance. Some quietly sent supplies to human fleets. The children of distant worlds, watching transmissions of human pilots laughing mid-battle, began to dream of courage and hope. Humanity's spirit was contagious. Back on Earth, families gathered in quiet homes to pray, to mourn, and to watch the reports. And still, even in their sorrow, they smiled. Humanity had returned to the fire it had once known, not with anger but with clarity, not with hatred but with strength. They fought because they had to, because they were forced to, and because their hearts demanded it. In one final transmission to the Krill, Admiral Donovan spoke not with anger but with calm authority. You thought we had forgotten how to fight. You thought peace had weakened us. You were wrong. We are not weak. We are patience. We are endurance. And we will not stop until every hand that threatens the innocent is empty. Every ship that fires upon life is silenced, and every world knows that humanity does not surrender. The Krill, listening through intercepted channels, realized the truth too late. The humans were no longer just a species. They were a force, unstoppable, united, and unyielding. And as human fleets advanced, the galaxy saw the strangest thing. Even in the heart of destruction, human laughter echoed. It was not cruel or cruelly ironic. It was defiance. It was courage. It was hope. The Krill had broken peace, expecting submission. But all they had done was awaken a storm. And the storm was coming. Humanity's fire had returned. The war had stretched across the stars for months, yet humanity stood firm, unbroken. Everywhere the Krill advanced, human forces met them with precision, courage, and a strange, unsettling laughter that spread through their ranks like wildfire. This laughter was not mockery. It was defiance. It was hope. And across the galaxy, everyone began to notice. From the distant worlds of the Zephyri Confederation to the floating cities of the Vorlands, alien races had been watching silently at first. Many had considered humanity insignificant. They were a young species, barely 3,000 years in the galactic stage. They had not fought the wars older empires had survived. They had been builders, healers, artists, not conquerors. But now the galaxy began to whisper. They fight differently, one Zephyri commander said, his many eyes narrowing. They do not panic. They do not beg. And yet they are everywhere. They laugh while fighting, another added, disbelief in her voice. Do you understand what that means? They are not afraid. Indeed, the humans were not afraid. Every battle, every strike, every loss only strengthened them. Colonies that had been abandoned were reclaimed, repaired, and fortified. Human medics treated wounded Krill soldiers and alien civilians alike. Farmers sent food to starving systems. Engineers rebuilt fleets overnight. Humanity fought not for glory, not for conquest, but for survival, and for every innocent life under threat. A young alien child named Lyra watched a transmission on her homeworld. She had been rescued from a Krill attack by a human fleet. The humans had given her water, food, and medicine, even though she was not one of their own. She saw pilots joking with each other in their cockpits as they dodged enemy fire. Engineers sang as they repaired ships. Soldiers laughed as they helped civilians evacuate a burning city. They are monsters, she whispered to herself. But they are kind monsters. Across the Krill fleets, fear began to spread. They had fought empires that struck fear into the hearts of stars, yet these humans seemed unstoppable. They adapted, evolved, and moved with a strange unity that no weapon could shatter. Every attempt to crush humanity failed. Every plan ended in chaos for the Krill. On Earth, Admiral Rhea Donovan studied reports from the front lines. Entire armadas had been destroyed, yet the humans had not faltered. She looked at the images of young pilots leading squadrons, civilians organizing defenses, and medics saving lives amidst the chaos. She could feel it. The galaxy was changing. Humanity had awakened not only their own strength but the hope of countless others. The humans themselves did not boast or gloat. Their victories were met with solemn determination. Their losses were mourned, but even in grief, they laughed, not because they were cruel, but because laughter was their shield, their weapon, and their proof that no force could break their spirit. The Krill sent envoys to other empires, demanding alliances, warning them of humanity's supposed weakness. Many species listened in disbelief as the Krill described humans as soft, naive, and peaceful. They laughed at the warning. Then the human fleets arrived. They did not conquer. They did not demand submission. They liberated worlds that had suffered under Krill rule. They repaired cities that had been bombed to rubble. They gave medicine, food, and hope to every planet they could reach. And in every act of aid, human laughter echoed, a reminder that they could face destruction without fear, that they could endure pain without giving in to hatred. In council halls across the galaxy, leaders began to whisper. The humans were not just fighters. They were saviors. The galaxy, long accustomed to empires claiming power through fear, saw something new. Humanity's strength was not in weapons alone, but in their hearts, in their laughter. In their defiance, the Krill could not understand it. They had brought war to destroy, to humiliate, to break the spirit of a young species. Instead, they had awakened it. Instead, they had shown the galaxy that the humans were a force unlike any other, unpredictable, relentless, and unafraid. And in the silence of space, above the broken worlds and burning fleets, one phrase repeated itself, carried on human communications, broadcast across liberated worlds, and whispered in awe by those who watched. They laugh and still they fight. They are unstoppable. The galaxy had learned the truth. Humanity was no longer the quiet neighbor. Humanity was the storm that had been sleeping for 3,000 years, and now it had returned. The Krill dominion had never known defeat. They were an empire built on centuries of conquest, their fleets unmatched, their soldiers trained to obey without question. They believed the galaxy feared them. They believed humanity was weak, a species softened by 3,000 years of peace. But now the truth had become undeniable. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was unstoppable. Over the past months, the Krill had watched their armies crumble. Entire fleets had been destroyed in battles that should have been easy victories. Their soldiers, trained to kill without mercy, now feared the humans they were supposed to dominate. Humans adapted with frightening speed, moving through ambushes, exploiting weaknesses, and striking with precision that bordered on artistry. And through it all, they laughed. Admiral Rhea Donovan stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, watching the final approach to Krill Prime. Below, the Krill homeworld sprawled like a black jewel, fortified with centuries of technology and defensive systems. The enemy expected destruction, panic, and fear. Instead, they would face the full force of humanity's resolve. "This ends today," Rhea said, her voice steady and calm. "They came to break peace. They will leave knowing who we are." The human fleets moved in perfect formation, not as machines, but as one living organism. Every ship, every pilot, every soldier knew their role. Every move was precise, calculated, and fearless. The Krill fired first, unleashing a storm of missiles, plasma, and energy beams. Explosions lit the void, but the human fleets dodged and countered. The Krill watched in horror as their largest warships were destroyed within minutes. From orbit, the humans deployed special teams to the surface not to conquer, but to disable weapons, rescue enslaved species, and evacuate civilians. They moved with grace and efficiency, never stopping to celebrate their victories. They fought not for glory, but because it was right. On the battlefield, young pilots like Kieran Tall laughed as they led daring maneuvers, dodging enemy fire and striking with deadly accuracy. Their voices echoed across the communications network, a strange symphony of courage. "We came to protect, not destroy," Kieran said over the comms. "But if you force our hand, you will see what humanity can do." The Krill could not comprehend it. Every tactic they used failed. Every formation collapsed. Every attack that should have broken humanity only strengthened it. They had underestimated not just the human skill, but their heart, and now that underestimation was their undoing. In the central command of Krill Prime, Overlord Zareth watched the destruction unfold. His massive claws shook with rage. He had thought himself invincible. He had thought humans were simple and fragile. Yet now he saw fleets crumbling, soldiers surrendering, and civilians liberated. And worst of all, he saw the humans laughing. "They are monsters," Zareth whispered, "but they are kind." How can this be? It could be because humanity had fought not only with weapons, but with the power of hope, courage, and unity. They had endured the unthinkable, adapted faster than anyone imagined, and risen stronger than ever. They fought not out of hatred, but for life, for honor, and for the promise that peace would live again. Admiral Donovan gave the final command. With a precision strike, the human fleets disabled Creel defenses and breached the planetary shields. Bombardments targeted weapon stations, never cities. Special teams liberated prisoners and treated the wounded. In hours, Krill Prime fell silent. The Overlord, cornered and defeated, had no choice but to surrender unconditionally. The humans did not cheer. They did not celebrate with cruelty. They mourned the lives lost even among their enemies. They treated the Krill with fairness, showing that victory did not require vengeance, only justice. A broadcast from Admiral Donovan reached the galaxy. You broke peace for power. You destroyed worlds. You thought humans were weak. You were wrong. Humanity fights with strength, with heart, and with spirit. Let this be remembered. The galaxy does not bow to fear. It bows to courage. And today, courage has won. Across the stars, the message spread. Aliens who had once feared humans now admired them. Races who had been neutral now sent supplies and allies. The Krill, once feared as unstoppable, were now a defeated empire, and through all of it the humans laughed, not out of joy for destruction but out of relief, defiance, and pride. Their laughter echoed across the galaxy, a sound that no weapon could silence, a symbol that even the darkest times could not break them. Humanity had fought not just for survival but for hope, and they had won. The war was over. The Krill Dominion, once feared across the galaxy, lay defeated. Their fleets were shattered, their cities liberated, their soldiers captured or redeemed. The humans had not only survived, they had transformed the galaxy forever. Yet even in victory, humanity did not boast. They did not dance on the ruins of their enemies. Instead, they mourned. They mourned for the billions who had died, for the families lost on Arden, for every colony reduced to ash. And even in their mourning they laughed. It was not a bitter laughter. It was not a cruel laughter. It was a laughter that carried defiance, relief, and hope. The kind of laughter that said, "We survived, and we will endure." The kind of laughter that reminded every species in the galaxy that life, courage, and spirit could never be destroyed. Across liberated worlds, humans worked tirelessly. On the planets that had been destroyed by Krill attacks, they rebuilt homes, schools, and hospitals. Farmers planted new fields, engineers repaired machines, and children returned to classrooms. Human fleets patrolled the borders to ensure no empire could rise in tyranny again. They had fought with precision, they had fought with power, and now they fought with compassion. In the Galactic Council, leaders of countless species gathered to honor humanity's achievement. They spoke of courage, resilience, and unity. They marveled at how a young, seemingly peaceful species had turned the tide of war not through brutality, but through heart, intelligence, and an unshakable spirit. Admiral Rhea Donovan stood before the council, her uniform crisp and her eyes steady. She did not speak of victory, she spoke of responsibility. "Peace is fragile," she said. "It is not given. It must be protected, nurtured, and fought for. Humanity fought not for power, but for life itself, for the lives of our people, for the lives of our neighbors, for the hope of a galaxy that believes in goodness. And now, we must ensure that hope endures." Across the stars, humans became legends. Children in alien worlds learned of the battles, the laughter, and the courage that had saved billions. Pilots like Kiran Tal were celebrated not as heroes of war, but as symbols of resilience. Scientists, engineers, and medics were remembered as equally vital to the victory. Every human, no matter how small their role, had contributed. Even the Krill themselves began to change. The surviving soldiers who had once sought destruction saw the humans' mercy and began to question the ways of their empire. They saw that power without compassion was hollow, that fear could never command loyalty, and that humanity's strength was not in domination, but in spirit. Some joined efforts to rebuild what they had destroyed, guided by the humans they had once tried to annihilate. Back on Earth, families stood together beneath the night sky. The stars seemed brighter now, the galaxy safer. Children looked up and asked questions about the war, about bravery, and about the strange humans who laughed in the face of death. Their parents smiled. remembering how humanity had endured, how humans had fought with laughter as their shield. And in quiet moments, far from battlefields and councils, the humans whispered the truth that had carried them through the darkest times. We laugh not because war is funny. We laugh because we remember who we are. The laughter became a symbol. It traveled across the galaxy, carried in stories, songs, and transmissions. It reminded every species that courage could take many forms, that hope could flourish even after devastation, and that even the youngest, smallest, or most underestimated beings could become legends. Peace returned to the galaxy. It was not fragile this time. It was alive, vibrant, and protected by the knowledge of what humanity could endure and achieve. Empires that once thought themselves invincible learned humility. Young species learned courage, and humans learned that even in the darkest hour, their spirit, their laughter was unbreakable. As Admiral Donovan watched the twin suns set over the rebuilt city of New Sol, she smiled. Humanity had endured, had triumphed, and had reminded the galaxy what it meant to be alive. The stars themselves seemed to shimmer in response, a silent applause for a species that laughed in the face of destruction, that fought not for glory, but for life. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of any fleet, a child on a distant world whispered, hearing the stories of humanity, "They laugh and they fight. They are unstoppable." The galaxy had learned the truth. Humanity had awakened a new era, and through every world, in every heart, the laughter that had once defied death now echoed forever, bright, fearless, eternal.